Hey everyone, welcome back to another Fusion tutorial. In today's video, we're going to go over how to design and build a simple cabinet in Fusion 360, or Autodesk Fusion, I guess it's called now. So this is pretty basic. This is a frameless cabinet. I did create a basic door as well. We are going to make this with parameters, so we're going to have a set of parameters here so we can change the size of this cabinet and still have it all work out. At the end of this video, I'm going to share with you a few things I'm going to have for sale on my Etsy store. One is going to be a script that you can install into Fusion that gives you a cut list of your parts of your model. And I also created some pretty complicated cabinets. I have some upper cabinets and some base lower cabinets with face frames on them, including the doors and drawer fronts that I will also be selling. So if you're interested in that, I'll have links in the description, and at the end of this video I'll kind of go over what you'd be getting when you purchase those. But let's just go ahead and make this cabinet. And you know what, if you don't want to purchase the ones that I have, hopefully by watching this you can create your own if you want. So okay, let's start a new design. So here in our new design, we're gonna do something first that my European friends don't have to do, but because we're doing woodworking here in the United States anyways, we use Imperial. So I'm gonna click document settings and then come over and click this to change the units, and I'm gonna change this to inch and hit OK. If you are in Europe, you could change, I think you can change this to centimeters. I think you guys do cabinets in centimeters, so you go ahead and change that how you want. But we're just going to go ahead and do inches for now. So let's start by creating a sketch, and we're going to pick this bottom plane. I'm going to kind of zoom out a little bit here because our cabinets in the United States are usually about 12 inches deep, our upper cabinets. So let's hit R for rectangle, and we're actually going to create parameters right here in the sketch. So a lot of times if I know the parameters I'm going to use, I'll create them ahead of time, but I'm just going to create them right here in the sketch. And to do that, you can see where that 9-inch is highlighted in blue. I'm going to start typing, and I'm just going to type in cabinet depth equals 11.25, and that's in inches. I'm going to hit tab, and I'm going to type in cabinet width equals, and we'll just do like a 18-inch cabinet and hit enter. Okay, so let's just go ahead and just get out of this sketch real quick. I'm just going to finish sketch just so I can show you. We're going to get into the parameters here. So this is the change parameters button. If you do not see it, you can go to modify all the way down to change parameters, and you can see those two parameters have been saved. And so we can change this to 20, and you'll see it update here, and we can change the depth as well. Now I kept depth 11.25 because once you add that door, which is usually about 3/4 inches thick, you have the 12-inch depth from the wall. So let's hit OK. Let's get back into this sketch. So we're going to create a few more rectangles here, and it's kind of hard to explain what I'm doing, but it'll make sense here in just a second. So we have our overall depth and our overall width. So let's hit R for rectangle, and we're going to create a rectangle right like this. And we're going to hit tab to go to the 1.934 inch there at the bottom, and I'm going to type in plywood thickness equals 0.75 inch. Okay, and we'll do the same thing here. Now actually, before I move on, this is something that's really important. You can see how this is blue right here because the length of this, even though we clicked it to this line, is not dimensioned. It's not constrained. So if you want this to auto update correctly, you have to constrain this point. So I'm just going to go to coincident here. I'm going to click on, let me click off everything. I'm going to click on this point and on this line. And that just now makes sure that this point is always on this line. So when we change the depth, if we ever change the depth, this also updates. And maybe I'll do another one here where I don't do that. Oops, let me back out here, hit R for rectangle, and I'm going to hit tab, and now I can just type in plywood thickness and it remembers it, so I'm going to hit enter. Now I did not constrain this, so let's just finish sketch. Let's see if this auto updates, and I'm going to change the depth now. Let's go 13, and did you see how this one did not change size? That's because I didn't do that coincident here, and this one did. So let's go back to 11.25 for the depth, hit OK. Let's go back into that sketch, and we're going to click this is coincident with that. Okay, so let's finish sketch. So what we basically are going to create are the side panels and the bottom panel. So I'm going to click this profile here, this sketch profile. I'm going to hit E for extrude, and we're going to create another parameter. This one's going to be called, you probably guessed it, cabinet height equals 30 inch. That's pretty typical for the United States. Okay. So sketch disappeared. Usually a lot of time, or I should say, unless you have it changed in your preferences, when you use a sketch to create a solid body, the sketch will usually disappear. So you just come back over here to sketch, and you can just toggle that back on. And we're going to do the same for this side. So E for extrude, and now we can just start typing in cabinet, and we can click on height and hit enter. And now we can click on this middle section here and hit E for extrude. And this one is just going to be plywood thickness. Now, one thing to make sure you do here, this is set to join, so you can see how it's going to connect these solid bodies. We want to make this a new body and hit OK. And now we can kind of hide this sketch and see our solid bodies. And before we get ahead of ourselves, let's name things. So this is going to be left panel, and we have right panel and bottom panel. Cannot type today. Okay, so now to create this top panel, I'm actually going to create a mid plane and then mirror it. So let's go to construct. We're going to go mid plane, and we're always going to reference off this and this, and you can see that created a plane right in the middle. So I'm going to hit OK. And now we can go to create, mirror, and first we select our object, which is going to be this, and then we're going to select our mirror plane, which is this, and make sure it's set to new body and hit OK. And we should rename this, so this is going to be top panel. And now we have our basic cabinet carcass here, and let's just start changing some things. So let's just make sure everything's okay, or is working okay. It's a good thing to do that before you get too complicated or too far into it, just to make sure things are working right. So cabinet width, let's go up to 24. Maybe cabinet depth, let's just do like 15. Cabinet height 36. There we go. It's all working just perfect. Okay, so now let's create the back panel, or the backing of it. And again, there's lots of ways to do this, but this is kind of how my brain says to do it. So we're on the back side here, and I'm going to create a sketch on this. I'm sorry, we're not going to create a sketch. I'm going to create an offset plane from this surface. And you can see the arrow is pointing this way. So if I drag it this way, there's my offset plane. But I want to go, basically I want to offset this, the size of the plywood, or the thickness of the plywood. So I'm just going to do negative plywood thickness and hit enter. And now I'm going to create a sketch on this. And I'm going to hit P for project, because I want to project these bodies onto this surface. And actually, probably the better way to do it, remember we have an offset plane here, so we're actually not drawing on this surface, we're drawing a quarter, or I'm sorry, 3/4 of an inch in. This will give you the same outcome, but what I'm going to do instead is go up to create, project, include, and intersect. That way, if you have some weird geometry in there, it's going to give you the sketch of what's on your plane. You see how this is kind of set back? My sketch now is set back. It's probably not super necessary, and I probably just confused a bunch of people, but basically I'm just trying to get the sketch outline of these bodies. And I'm just going to hide these bodies for a second. And now we want to create this back panel. And how I'm going to do this, because remember, we want to do this in a way that when we update the size of it, it can update with it. So we have to have some reference points. So I'm going to hit L for line, and I'm going to make this a construction line. And I'm going to move my mouse until you see that triangle, and that indicates that we're in the center of this line. Click, and I'm going to drag down to the center of this line. So I'm going to hit R for rectangle, and we have to do a few things. I want to take it off construction, and I'm going to do a center rectangle. And I'm just going to draw, I'm going to find the center of this line. It'll click on that triangle there. I'm going to click. I'm going to drag out so we're kind of somewhere floating in the middle here. Just like that. And now if you can think about how we're making this, this space here represents a dado that we have to cut. So I'm going to hit D for dimension, and I'm going to type in dado, if I can type, equals, we're going to do 3/8 of an inch. There we go. Didn't have to type in the 3/8. And then we're going to do the same with this. And this time we just have to type in dado. Enter. And now you can see everything is black, which means we have it completely constrained. And I'm going to hit Finish Sketch. Let's turn our bodies back on. Oh, I'm sorry. Hide our bodies. And let's select this whole square that's going to represent our back panel. Okay. I'm going to turn my bodies back on because I want this to cut away from these bodies to make the dado. So I'm going to hit E for extrude, and I'm going to show you something, and this is just kind of a little quirk. I don't want to extrude this way, right? Because this is the distance that we're going to create those back nailers on. I want it to extrude this way, but I also want to create a parameter. So normally I would just type in like back panel thickness equals 1/4 inch, but I want it to go the opposite way. So you might think you can just put this in a parentheses and then hit a negative sign, but that doesn't work. So of course I just got out of this. So what we actually have to do is a little workaround. I'm just going to reselect this. Turn our bodies back on. I'm going to hit E for extrude, and I'm just going to do 2 sides. And I'm going to click on this arrow, so it's going in this direction. And now we can just type in back panel thickness equals 1/4. And you can see it turned red because it's running into these solid bodies. The operation is set to cut. So I'm just going to hit OK because we do want it to cut. And there you can see it cut in our dados. Now you could take this a step further. You can see the dado runs all the way to the edge of these top panels and bottom panels. But if I hide the top and bottom panels, you can see that dado stops here. And if you're doing this as a real woodworking project, you're probably just going to run this dado all the way through. Now you could take the time to hit E for extrude and then go to the extent type to object and click this surface and hit OK. And then go ahead and just fix all of these dados. But honestly, for the purpose of this model, it doesn't really matter. You're gonna on the table saw, you're gonna just run this through the table saw, so it's gonna go all the way through. It just won't be represented in this model. I'm not gonna take the time to do that here, so I'm just gonna delete that. But now you can see we have our dados cut. So now we basically just do the exact same thing, but this time create a solid body instead of cutting it. So I'm going to turn that sketch back on. We'll just hide the bodies real quick. Let's select these again. You got to make sure you select everything. I'm going to turn the bodies back on before I extrude it. I'm going to hit E for extrude. And again, we want to go in the opposite direction. Actually, this time I don't think we need to because the parameter is already set. So now I can hit negative back panel thickness and it goes that other way. I just couldn't put the negative sign in there when I was creating that parameter. And I don't want this to join. I want this to be a new body and hit OK. Let's hide that sketch. And now we have a new body called back panel. So we'll just hit back panel. And there we go. And let's just check some things here. So let's go to inspect, section analysis, and we're just going to kind of drag this to the middle here and hit OK. And now we can see how it fits. Now you could create some clearance in here if you really wanted to. What you can do, let's turn that analysis off here. You can toggle that analysis on right here. Let's just get rid of the left, right, bottom, and top. And let's say we wanted to create some clearance here. I can actually go ahead and select all of these edges. And to select multiple things, you hold Shift on the keyboard. I'm just going to select all of these surfaces here. With these selected, I can now do a press pull. And let's just say like negative 1/16 and hit OK. Now that just brought in each side by 1/16. And so if we turn everything back on and we do our section analysis, now you can see we have created that clearance, and that's for wood movement. So there you go. That's how you would do that. Not necessarily needed to be done for this model. While you're at the table saw, you could just cut this a little thinner, but now you have it for sure. You have it built in. So, okay, now we have some nailers to do. So we're just going to select this back panel surface here and create a sketch on it. And just like before, I'm going to hit P for project, and I'm going to project the bodies. Now, I guess one thing I didn't explain before for this project is you can either just project like surfaces or edges, or you can project the entire body. And so I have the body selected, and you want to make sure projection link is turned on. When this is turned on, the sketch will update as these bodies update. So let's say you change the thickness of this side panel. If you didn't have projection link clicked, the sketch wouldn't update to reference that. I hope that makes sense. So let's hit OK. If I hide the bodies, you can see it kind of drew that outline. So I'm just going to hit R for rectangle. We're going to do these nailers now. I'm going to click and drag over. And the width, we can do another parameter here. So I'm going to do nailer, I'm not capitalizing anything. So I'm just going to do nailer width equals maybe 3 inches. And hit enter. Again, you can see this line is not black because we have to make sure we glue this to that. And we'll do the same thing down here, R for rectangle. And I'm going to type in nailer width. And we're going to do another constraint here, this to this. And we can finish sketch. Let's make our bodies visible again. And now we can just click here and here, hit E for extrude, plywood thickness, and make sure you set this to new body. Always be double checking that, otherwise you're going to start combining bodies, and hit OK. And now we have our nailer. So we can again name this to top nailer, bottom nailer. And there we go. And that's pretty much a completed cabinet. So let's go ahead and change things again to make sure it's working. So let's go back to our regular things. We're going to go 11.25 inches. Plywood thickness, let's just change this to half. Now that's going to make our dados for this back panel way too large. So, I didn't add in 1 here. So we're just going to just type dado in as a quarter. You know what? It's showing up weird here, and I think it's because when I was typing that in, I didn't include the inch. And so now it's doing this funky thing, but I guess it doesn't really matter. Back panel thickness is a quarter, dado's a quarter, nailer's 3 inch. I think cabinet height, let's go down to 30 and hit OK. And let's just make sure everything's working. Let's do our analysis here. And everything is still lined up perfectly. Let's go back to 3/4 of an inch for plywood thickness. That's what I use for cabinets anyways, just to get them beefed up. And let's do the dado back 1/2 inch. Looks like it's updating anyways, but gosh, the OCD in me this is making me nuts. It's fine. Hit OK. OK. The cabinet is working. So really the only thing left to do is make a simple door. And if you want, maybe you should pause. If you're following along on the computer, you should pause the video right now to figure out how you might create a door for this. Or 2 doors. A hint, if you're going to do 2 doors, I would create 1 door first and then mirror it for the other door. And I would be using some mid planes to do that. But let's just make 1 door. And we're going to do it exactly kind of how we did this back panel, except this time we don't have to inset it. So I'm just going to create a sketch right here. I'm going to hit P for project, and we're going to project these bodies again. Hit OK. I'm just going to hide the bodies just so it's a little easier to see. Same thing as we did for that panel. I'm going to hit L for line, X on the keyboard to make it construction. And this is just a reference line to get that rectangle where we want it. R for rectangle, X on the keyboard to take it off construction. Find the middle. Oops, I did the wrong type of rectangle. R for rectangle, and I'm going to make this a center rectangle. And I'm just going to kind of drag it up like this. Now, we're going to do a full overlay hinge. I think that's what you call for the European style for frameless cabinets. Basically, the door is going to basically take up the whole front of the cabinet minus just a little clearance. And I'm going to make that like 2 millimeters. You could also just make this a parameter again. And let's just do that. I'm going to hit D on the keyboard. This distance to this distance, we're going to type in door, I don't know, clearance. I don't know if that's really the word to use. And we're going to make this maybe, I guess I'm doing, sorry, I switched to metric there. We're going to do this maybe like 1/16 of an inch and hit enter. And for this one, we will also do 1/16 of an inch, but since we have that parameter, we can just type in door clearance, hit enter, finish sketch. Let's select all of our squares here. Let's make our bodies visible again. I'm going to E for extrude, and I'm just going to do plywood thickness because that's kind of what we're going with. Make sure I go to new body and hit OK. All right, so let's put an appearance on this so it looks like wood. So I'm going to hit A on the keyboard for appearance. This little window will pop up, and if you scroll down, you can go to wood, And I'm going to scroll all the way down to, oh, I guess I want solid wood. I just like how this looks. And I'm going to do, there's finished, painted, stained, all sorts of stuff. I like finished, and we're just going to do pine. And I'm going to drag this up to our appearance panel up here. I'll go to all of my bodies, hold shift and click on the top and bottom so it selects all of them. And then I can just drag this over to my model and then hit close. Okay, so the next part of this video, I'm going to go over my script that gives you a cut list of your project. So in order to have this script work, you're going to have to turn on text commands, which is way down here at the bottom. To do that, you go up to File and View, and you'll click on Show Text Commands. I already have it visible, so that's why it says Hide. And when you come down to the bottom of the screen and hit plus, you'll see this little area show up here, and you can change this to any size you want. So let's run the script. To run the script, you just go to Utilities, Add-ins, and it's going to show up in this list right here under Scripts. You can check this if you just want to only show the scripts, but it's going to be called Cut List Generator. And when you hit play, it's going to sample every single solid body that's visible. So if you don't want it to show up in the cut list, you just toggle it off. And the window's going to pop up and show you kind of a list here. And it's going to ask you to, if you want to save it as a CSV file. A CSV file is a type of file that you can open up with like Excel or any of those other type programs. And then you can print it out, and it's separated into columns and rows and stuff. I'm going to hit no because it also shows up in the text commands here. So if I can bring this up, so at the very top, it's going to give you the solid body name, the metric measurements, and the imperial measurements. And then further down, it's going to actually give you a cut list grouped by size. So it's going to say you need 2 pieces this size, and it gives you the name of, and so then you can get all of your pieces cut. Here are some of the models that I'm going to have for sale on my Etsy store, and I will be adding to these. This is just what I have done so far. So here you can see a face frame wall cabinet. And if you come over to the bodies, I have it separated into doors and the actual cabinet. And then within each folder, I have each piece. So you have your stiles, your rails, and your door panel. These are all tongue and groove construction. The cabinet is built pretty similarly to how we did the frameless cabinet, except there's obviously now a face frame. If you have a paid version or an educational version, I also have configurations set up, so you can actually click on the size cabinet you want, the first number being the height and then the width. So right now it's on a 36 by 18. Let's say I want a 42 by 21, and it just updates. And then if you have the script for the cut list, you can get your entire cut list for this cabinet. Now you can go into parameters, and I did this a little differently, and I'm not sure if this is a good idea yet or not. I wanted a way that both metric users and imperial users can do this. And so the expression, so I've got a ton of parameters you can change here, and you'll just have to kind of go through them. Most cabinet makers will know what all of these mean. But for the expression, I basically have it in millimeters multiplied by inches. So the plywood thickness, there's 25.4 millimeters per inch times 3/4 gives us 19.05 millimeters. So the project is in millimeters, but you can change the inches right here. And I did that because a lot of plywood, well, one, so more people can use it than just Americans, but also like plywood thickness isn't always exactly 3/4. It's usually not. It's usually like 18 point something. And if you need your measurements to be exact, you can kind of change these. And you can always go in with these expressions and completely change them to how you want. But so yeah, I won't go through changing all these. They all work, but you have your face frame width, thickness, the overhang, which is the overhang right here to here, door thickness, hinge overlay, all sorts of stuff. And I have this both as a single door upper cabinet, and then I have another file that is a double door upper cabinet. And again, there are configurations here for the most common size double door cabinets. On top of that, I have the base cabinet. So I have a single door base cabinet and a double door base cabinet. Now, base cabinets are a little trickier because there's so many different variations. You can have the door with a drawer. You can have all drawers, which I haven't done yet. But the only thing I did not do on this is actually make the drawer itself, mainly because there's so many different ways to make a drawer. So a cut list for a drawer, I feel like, would be kind of hard to use. You know, this kind of joinery for the drawer fronts and door fronts is pretty universal. So the cut list would be totally fine for this, but a drawer is not universal. I mean, there's probably 15 different ways of making a drawer. So I left that out. Also, depending on, you know, the hardware you use for the drawers and that kind of thing, I didn't want to include that. So again, I have the single and the double, and you can, again, go and do parameters. There's a lot more options for the base cabinets because, for example, a lot of times on your drawer fronts, your rails won't be as wide as your stile. So I have different, you can change all those. You can change the spacing between here. You can change the height of your drawer. So let's see where the drawer spacing is. Let me just turn off the drawer front. Is the spacing right here. So I have it set to 4, and I'll do one so you can see it update here. So right now this is a 4-inch spacing. So if we get in here and change this to 5, you'll see it update on the cabinet. And again, you can use the script to get all of your measurements. So yeah, anyways, these will be available. These are the ones I have done so far. So I've got the base cabinet with 1 door, 1 drawer, base cabinet with 2 doors and 1 drawer, and then the 2 wall cabinets, 1 with 2 doors and 1 with 1 door. Those will be available on my Etsy. I'm not sure of the price yet. I think it's going to be pretty cheap. I'm not looking to make a ton of money, just something to help pay for the bills. So I'll let you guys purchase those if you want. I will keep building more if you didn't want to go through. So I think I'm going to do a bunch of frameless ones, and I'll make those available as a purchase as well. So yeah, if you want to support me and support my channel, this would be a good way to do it. Or, you know, if you're a weekend warrior out in the shop, you need to make some cabinets, and you use Fusion, this is a pretty robust cabinet generator, and along with that cut list, it makes it really easy to figure out how to build these cabinets. And of course, this is a starting point. If you wanted to change some things outside the parameters, you definitely can. You can get it how you want it and then make some changes from there. You know, you could add shelving if you wanted, or whatever you wanted to do. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed. I will have a link in the description to where you can buy these files. It'll just be a direct download, so you purchase them and then you get emailed the files. The same thing for my cut list generator. I will just have it as a download that you pay for, and then it immediately gets emailed to you. And with that cut list generator, I will also maybe make a video, a link to a YouTube video showing you how to install it and stuff like that. So if you have any questions, leave me some comments down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's kind of getting long, but enjoy.